No beat, apparently. Okay, friends, we are ready to pick up somewhere in the vicinity of Matthew 9, Mark 5, and or Luke 8. The last time we were together, we talked about the one event that takes place on the east side of the Sea of Galilee with Jesus and his disciples. They cross the sea, there's the big storm, everybody's afraid they're going to die. When they arrive on the other coast, they are immediately confronted by a demon-possessed man, usually called a demoniac. This guy is possessed by multiple evil spirits. Jesus casts the spirits out, and the people in town freak out and ask Jesus if he could please go away. But the man who is released from spiritual bondage says, I really want to come with you. And Jesus instead says, why don't you stay here? Tell people what God has done for you. And so that's what he does. He stays right there and becomes an evangelist, a missionary, whatever, witness for Jesus's miracles and teaching on the east side of the Sea of Galilee. What we see next is that Jesus and the disciples head back to the other side of the lake. Now, that's a curious thing to me. So after all that parable teaching, on the north and west side of the Sea of Galilee, they get into a boat, encounter this major storm at sea, land, release this man from evil spirits, and then apparently proceed to turn right back around and head back across the lake. That seems like a lot of effort and a lot of travel for this one event, which probably should indicate something to us, like how important this event is. That Jesus knew that that guy was going to be there, and he knew that he needed to be released. I mean, I'm not really sure exactly what it tells me, other than this is clearly some kind of a significant decision that Jesus is making to sail across the lake, to row something like 8 miles across the water in the dark, in a storm, to meet this man and to set him free.
Would you not leave the 99 to find the one?
Well, there you go. Wouldn't you leave the 99 to find the one? He clearly has left lots more than 99 to take care of this one dude. So it would be interesting to find out what the impact of that one guy from Gerasa or Gadara, what his impact was. I suppose at some point we'll get to see that in heaven. Like, okay, so who's here because of that guy? Okay, I'm going to assume that they probably got back into their boats and sailed back across rather than taking the long route, which probably would have been a couple days walk back to the other side. But again, the next chapter, the next episode we see starts in Matthew 9, verse 18, Mark 5, verse 21, or Luke 8, verse 40. The NIV titles each one of those sections, Jesus raises a dead girl and heals a sick woman. So let's read Matthew 9. Verse 18. Let's just go ahead and read from Matthew. While he was saying this, a synagogue leader came up and knelt before him and said, "My daughter has just died, but come and put your hand on her and she will live." Jesus got up and went with him, and so did his disciples. Just then, a woman who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak. She said to herself, "If I only touch his cloak, I will be healed." Jesus turned and saw her. "Take heart, daughter, your faith has healed you." And the woman was healed at that moment. When Jesus entered the synagogue leader's house and saw the noisy crowd and people playing pipes, he said, "Go away, the girl is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. After the crowd had been put outside, he went in and took the girl by the hand, and she got up. News of this spread through all that region. Okay, so Mark's version and Luke's version are pretty much the same. They do give a few additional details and a little bit different twist. Matthew says that the synagogue ruler's daughter has just died. If you look at Mark and Luke's account, they say that that man's name is Jairus and that the daughter is dying. She hasn't died yet. We learn that she is 12 years old as the story goes through in Mark 5 and Luke 8. She is very, very sick, very near death. I don't believe that these are inconsistent. I think it might just be, the perspective on timing here. So Jairus comes to Jesus to ask him to come to her. He believes that Jesus is able to restore her life. Okay?
So he's another one that believes in Jesus then.
He believes in Jesus even before he has met him, probably. We don't know which synagogue he's from, which city they have landed in, but it's something on the northwest quarter of the Sea of Galilee. It could be that this man has already seen Jesus and heard him, seen him perform a miracle. We just don't have those details. But he does come believing that Jesus has miraculous power from God, and so, "Please come." Jesus agrees, and so Jesus and his disciples start to make the way with Jairus to his home. So while that's going on, there are these crowds of people that are around him, because there are always crowds of people around Jesus. And right behind him is a woman who has been suffering. She's been afflicted for a number of years. For as long as this little girl has been alive, this woman has been bleeding internally. What we learn as we go through Matthew, Mark, and Luke's accounts is that this woman, however old she is, she's an adult woman, that she has been to see all of the doctors that are available. She has used up whatever money she had to pay for treatment, and nothing has changed. She's still in the same state that she always has been. Now, there are some things that we probably don't realize about this woman's situation. So if you go to the Old Testament and you read about some of the rules about a person's body, there are several things that can make a person ritually, ceremonially unclean. You wouldn't be able to make your sacrifices. We'd have to stay away from people. All sorts of things, oozing things and gaping, rashy things. And while we may not really understand the reason for all of it, during a woman's period, she was unclean. And so this woman has been bleeding somehow for 12 years. So that means for the last 12 years, she has been unclean. Now, we don't know how old she is, but people didn't live to be super long all the time. if she's 40, she's spent, nearly a third of her life unable to go to the temple, unable to participate in the festivals. We don't read about a spouse or family, and that would make some kind of sense, because if a woman is perpetually unclean, who's gonna make a decision to either get married to her or to stay married to her, because they will also be unclean all the time as well? I mean, that's the stuff of Hallmark movies right there. Somebody chooses to be an outcast along with the woman that he loves. That's clearly not the case here. So she's an unmarried woman, which means she doesn't have a lot of money to start with, and whatever she has had, she has spent it all for treatment. So she's kind of, I don't know how much lower she could get. She's kind of down and out. So she has heard that Jesus is coming around. She's tired of being an outcast. So she hears that he's coming, and so she goes looking for him, finds him in the crowd, comes up behind him, and believes, if I can just get a hold of his jacket, if I can just touch his shirt, if I grab the hem of his robe, that will be good enough for me. I'll be healed. And that's quite a bit of faith right there. I mean, she's not insisting that she's got to talk to him and that he's got to lay his hands on her or anything like that. If I can just get close enough to grab a hold of the tassel of his robe, that will take care of it. I mean, that's pretty miraculous faith there. And so, in the hustle and the bustle of the crowd, she comes up and she is able to get her hand on his clothes, and as soon as she does, things change. She feels different, and Jesus feels different as well. He stops and says, hey, who touched me? Like, well, we're in a crowd. Everybody's touching you. No. That's not what I mean. I mean, somebody really touched me. I felt power go out from me. Something significant has happened here. Who was it? Because of what I believe about Jesus, he already knows who it was. It's kind of like in the Garden of Eden. Oh, Adam, where are you? Oh, of course you know where they are. We're just trying to get them to, to own up to it. I think the same thing is true here. Okay, I know who it was, but somebody tell me what just happened here. And so the woman comes up, falls down at his feet, and begins to tell her story about everything that she's been through. He's like, woman, your faith has healed you. Then he says, go in peace and be freed from your suffering. It's not magic. It may have seemed like magic to anybody who was around and saw it or heard it, but it wasn't some kind of wishful thinking. It was her belief in the power of God, in Jesus, that brought her healing and relief, and really restored her to like full personhood again. I mean, she can go to the synagogue, she can go to the temple, she can have a spouse, she could have children. Her life is now open up for her in a way that it hasn't been for years and years and years. And this is just a funny thing happened on the way to Jairus' house kind of a deal. It wasn't on the plan, it wasn't on the itinerary. She decided that if she could get in up close to him, that's what she was going to do. And there's this beautiful little story about this woman's incredible faith and the miracle that happened because of it. Which is not the point of the whole exchange. So after she gets up and goes along, Jesus and Jairus and the rest of the disciples and whoever else continue to make their way to Jairus' house. What we read in Mark and Luke is that before they can get there, folks come from Jairus' home to say, "Don't bother. She's all right. She's just passed away. There's no reason for the teacher to come. Don't bother me." And Jesus tells the group, after he gets there, they continue to go to the house. Jesus takes with him Peter and James and John, sort of the inner circle of 3 out of the 12. He says to them and to anybody else who's at the house, crying, mourning, playing pipes, whatever that means, he says, shh, she's only sleeping, and they just laugh at him. It's not just he said something funny. They're mocking him because of what he has said. Like, oh, right, sure, idiot. Why would you believe that? We've been here. We saw her die. We heard her take her last breath. She's gone. And so his answer is, get out. All of those people are put outside the house. Jesus and Peter and James and John and the girl's parents, Jairus and Mrs. Jairus, go into the girl's room where he grabs a hold of her hand and he speaks to her. Luke says that it's in Aramaic. So there are three big languages in the Bible. So you've got Hebrew, which Abraham and Moses and all of their people would have spoken. When you get to the New Testament, it's all written in Greek because Greek culture has taken over the whole Mediterranean world. But before Greek became the language of trade and diplomacy, there was also Aramaic, which came from Syria, the land of Aram. And it's a language that is related to Arabic and to Hebrew. You can kind of move back and forth in it, apparently reasonably well. It would have been the language that Jesus spoke most of the time. He says to her, Talitha cum, which means young lady or little girl, rise. Luke, I believe it's Luke, it's Mark that translates it. Talitha cum, which means little girl, I say to you, get up. He's got some power, he has authority, and if Jesus says you should get up, then you should get up. Aramaic shows up a few times in the New Testament. Specifically, John mentions the Aramaic words in a few places. In John 5, he talks about, in Aramaic, it's Bethesda. In John 19, in a number of places, the Aramaic is Gabbatha, the Aramaic is Golgotha. The sign on the cross that's written in Greek and Latin and Aramaic is, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. And then when they're in the garden, John says that Mary uses the Aramaic and calls him teacher, Rabboni. So I don't know why it's specific in those places where he mentions that it's Aramaic being used. John must have had some reason. So anyway, it's the language of commerce, it's the language of trade, the language of diplomacy, the language that everybody speaks. It would be like English is now, where if you're going to do business, you're going to do government work, you're going to do diplomacy across the world, you're going to do it in English. So, Jesus comes in, he says to the little girl, sweetheart, get up. And she opens her eyes, she gets up out of the bed, starts walking around, and Jesus says she's going to need something to eat. And everybody is amazed. Even though there clearly is some belief on the part of at least Jairus, and maybe his wife as well, that Jesus could heal the daughter or restore the daughter, the response from the parents is complete astonishment. They are overcome with great amazement. The word can mean to be beside yourself. I'm assuming with joy and everything else that's going on right there. They're ecstatic, as you would expect. But Jesus sort of stops them and says, do not let anybody know about this. Crystal clear instructions, command. Don't tell anybody about what you've seen.
How was that supposed to work?
There's a lot of people there.
Well, she was dead. She's
Now
gonna
she's
walk
alive.
outside.
It could be that he's talking specifically about what's happening in the room. I mean, as you say, the people were all there. They believed that she was all the way dead, regardless of what Jesus said. And then when he leaves, the little girl runs outside and waves by. Thanks for coming, whatever. It would have been clear that something had happened.
Well, but he tried to tell them that she was asleep. So maybe she really was just asleep. To them.
Or a coma, or whatever we might call
To the
it.
crowd outside, not to the people that witnessed it.
Don't tell anybody about this. I can't believe that Jesus is dense and he doesn't understand how people work. Because he's been through this already. Either do tell people or don't tell people. He knows how they're going to operate. And so one of the things that makes a little bit of sense is that Jesus doesn't want them to spread what has happened here, that he has brought this little girl back from the dead, because that's not why he came. I mean, he can do it, and he has done it at least a couple times so far. And he's going to do it a couple more times. But Jesus didn't come to be a resurrector of corpses.
No, but his compassion kind of compelled him to.
His compassion does compel him to. But can you just imagine, I mean, like if everybody hears that Jesus is going to raise everybody back from the dead, they'll have his picture on every funeral home in the county, find this man. And he'll just bring everybody back. While his compassion drives him to relieve people's suffering, he could get so sidetracked from what his real mission is by taking on this good thing that could become the thing. It's not everything that we choose to do. I'll start that again. Not everything that distracts us from serving God in ministry is a bad thing. Some of them are very lovely things. This is a beautiful thing that Jesus has done for this family. But if he allows it to take center stage, he will not be able to do everything that he definitely has come for. He won't be able to accomplish his mission because there will always be one more dead person. Somebody else is going to die. So he doesn't want to become the resurrector of souls. He's come to be the savior of souls. It seems to me like that's the reason that he says, don't spread this around. Just keep this to yourself. What do you think?
Yeah, but I mean, he knew it was gonna spread anyway. But my original thought was, the reason he said she was just asleep was to kind of minimize what was going on there anyway.
To transition
Trying-
into here she is.
To, you know,
Jesus tells everybody she's just asleep to minimize the impact of what's about to happen.
If she's dead, that's a big deal. If she's just asleep, it's not quite as big a deal.
I'd probably have to work on that one for a while. Because somebody might say, well, wouldn't that be just lying then? Is he lying to the crowds? Which that doesn't really seem like something we would expect Jesus to do.
no, because asleep means dead in some cases.
That would be deception by wordplay or something.
Sleep means dead. I don't know. I'll have to give that some more thought.
Let me know what you think, will you?
Okay. What did I say? He didn't come to bring loved ones back from the dead. He came to reveal God's truth and glory to humanity. He will say the same thing to the next men that he meets in Matthew 9. In Matthew 9, verse 7. We see that Jesus meets 2 blind men and 1 mute, demon-possessed man. Matthew 9:27, as Jesus went on from there, 2 blind men followed him, calling out, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." When he had gone indoors, the blind men came to him and he asked them, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" "Yes, Lord," they replied. Then he touched their eyes and said, "According to your faith, let it be done to you." And their sight was restored. Jesus warned them sternly, "See that no one knows about this." But they went out and spread the news about him all over that region. While they were going out, a man who was demon-possessed and could not talk was brought in to Jesus. And when the demon was driven out, the man who had been mute spoke. The crowd was amazed and said, "Nothing like this has ever been seen in Israel." But the Pharisees said, "It is by the prince of demons that he drives out demons." Okay, so 2 blind men, they understand something that people with eyeballs that work can't see. They recognize that Jesus is someone special. What do they call him? Have mercy on us, who?
Son of David.
Son of David. Well, he's not a prince. He didn't come from the castle or from the palace. He didn't ride up on a white horse. They understand that Jesus is the descendant of David, the one who is promised to sit on the throne of Israel forever. They believe that Jesus is the Messiah. How they can see that and other people with 20/20 vision can't is remarkable. But they clearly believe that he's the Messiah. And so they cry out. They are looking for mercy from Jesus. The thing that they're looking for is essentially help, compassionate help. Take a look at us, see what kind of miserable state we're in, and please do something about it. In Greek, Lord have mercy on us is Kyrie eleison, which is a line from a song
I was
in
gonna say, it sounds a lot
1980 something.
like a song, that was,
Down the road that I must travel, Kyrie eleison. Well, it's not on the 40s channel, that's why.
I can't remember the name of the group.
Was it
Adam?
Adam?
No, it was somebody else, like Mr. or something like that. And it's in a bunch of Latin masses from the Middle Ages as well. So, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us. Jesus says, well, fellas, do you believe that I've got the power to do it? You want me to show mercy? Do you really believe that I've got the power to show you some mercy? And they agree that he does, and so he says, well, fine. According to your faith, it'll be done. And that's kind of an interesting response, isn't it? However much you believe, or whatever it is that you believe, that's what you will receive from me. Now, I am sure that there have been preachers who have taken this story and said, see, the reason that you don't have is because you don't believe when you ask. The reason you don't live in a big mansion is because you really don't believe God can have you live in a big mansion. The reason you don't live in abundance and wealth and splendor is because you just don't believe enough. I don't think that's the point of this exchange. I think faith is central to it, but it's not so much you can have whatever you want as long as you believe that you're going to get it. Whatever you believe, according to your belief, that's what you will receive from me. And so he puts his hand on their eyes, and they can see clearly. They have actual faith in Jesus as a tool for God's power. They really believe that he's the Messiah, and so that's why they are really healed. The word for blindness here has to do with like cloudiness, smokiness. So maybe they've got really bad cataracts or glaucoma or something like that. But after he touches them, clear sight, they can see everything. And so one more time, after a miracle, Jesus says to them,
Don't say nothing.
keep it to yourself. He warned them sternly. It is a command. Stay silent. They are not to tell anyone what has happened or how it happened to them, because obviously, kind of like the girl in the last account, people saw a dead girl. Now people see a girl playing in the front yard. Something has happened. These men are going to will have been beggars because they can't work. They're going to be reduced to sitting alongside a tree asking for help. And so people know them. People have seen them. They know that they're blind, and now all of a sudden they're wandering through shops looking at price tags and look at the pattern on this outfit here. What color would you call this? Is this blue? Is this azul? Is this what color? Turquoise? What is this color? And Jesus sternly enjoins them, which means he really meant that they should stay quiet. There's no question where it's like wink, wink, winkety, wink, wink. Don't tell anybody. Ha ha. No, it's the real deal. Do not tell anybody about this. But even though they've experienced this miraculous change through Jesus, they either choose not to or are unable to keep it to themselves. And so the news about this spreads like wildfire every place that they travel. That fact is probably amongst the top 3 or 4 or 5 hard things for me to wrap my head around in the Gospels. Jesus says, don't tell. Keep it to yourself. And people just don't. Is it because they're disobedient? Is it because he knew that they wouldn't be able to, but he'd like for them to? Why can't anybody do what they're told here? I don't get that.
But how do they explain, now that I can see, then I couldn't, now I can, how do they explain it?
Can't tell you.
It would seem to me like, well, I met this guy named Jesus, but he said not for me to say anything about it. I don't know.
Wouldn't that be tough though?
It would be tough.
I mean, if Jesus showed up and gave him my leg back and said, don't tell anybody.
But nobody should
Yeah,
ever
because-
give it back.
Because in one
I would be
instance,
ecstatic.
in one instance, he's showing his incredible power, and then he tells them, don't say anything, and they turn right around and ignore that incredible power.
But you would be so thrilled to have your eyesight that it would take a lot of work to control the urge to tell people.
Well, I get that Jesus understands human nature, but the warning is still there for some reason. And like you say, it may just be because that's, I don't want to turn into a carnival.
Right. I have always heard that the major underlying reason for all of this put a lid on it stuff is because Jesus has a timeline for his ministry. And if the word spreads too fast, too far, it will screw up the timeline, and he won't be able to do what he needs to do when he needs to do it and where he needs to do it, because they will have already arrested and killed him.
That's what I was wondering about the daughter.
I think, I mean, that seems like the most reasonable explanation for his desire to keep things under wraps, because the more people talk, the more famous I become, and the more hated I'm going to be to the Pharisees. They're going to work harder and faster to get rid of me.
Yeah.
Even though he knew it was gonna spread anyway.
Yes, I believe he knows it is inevitable that the word is going to get out. But I also believe that he is trying to control how quickly that information spreads and in what directions.
But still allow people their free will. Because he could have shut them up.
He could have made him on mute.
Yeah.
Hey, I just healed you from being
Solved.
mute. Guess what? You can't keep your yap shut. Get it away.
You bet.
The very next paragraph.
Yeah. So, and I wrote down, it's probably due to this kind of evangelizing, because of this telling that everybody has been doing, that another man is brought to Jesus in verses 32, 33, and 34. A man comes, he is unable to speak. He is also possessed by a demon, another evil spirit. Jesus drives the spirit out, and immediately the man is able to speak again. What does it say? The crowd The crowd is amazed and said, "Nothing like this has ever been seen in Israel." The word for the crowd's reaction has to do with wondering, marveling, holding in admiration. We have never seen anything like this in Israel. Wahoo, hallelujah. I think it is like less of an understanding that God is doing something here than it is, oh man, that was radical. That's more the sort of the spectacle of it. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. It's not, oh, the Lord God Almighty is doing something amazing through this man. It's, man, that was totally awesome. And that's about as far as their faith and understanding goes. The Pharisees are not as impressed. They are not thrilled. And just like before, they say, well, the only reason that Jesus can drive out demons is because he has power from the prince of demons. His power comes from Satan. He surely can't be from God because he is not acting like we expect the Messiah to act. This is going to be their song from here on out. He is from the enemy, he is from Satan, he is evil, he is a liar and a deceiver and a corrupter. Which is what jealousy will do to you. So. What do you think so far?
It's interesting. It's hard to get your head around a little bit.
All right, well. We'll press ahead then.
Let me throw this one little tiny hand grenade out.
Yes,
I know
Cody, your hand grenade is.
He never actually says, I made you good. It says, your faith in me. He puts the emphasis on their faith instead of him.
Matthew especially mentions a lot about faith. You know, according to your faith will be done to you. Your faith has made you well. He believed, they believed, you know, you of little faith. I mean, it seems like it is this kind of a central theme, certainly for Matthew, but you know, also for the others as well. I believe that is definitely on purpose, and there's something for us to pay attention to there. That it is. Well, there's this contrast. So the crowds see Jesus acting in these crazy ways, doing things that nobody else has ever been able to do. The Pharisees see it, and they refuse to believe that he's the Messiah. The crowds believe that he's something special. Maybe he's the Messiah. Maybe he's just got some kind of supernatural powers. They see something, they believe in something. The Pharisees refuse to believe. And that seems to be kind of like the back and forth deal throughout the Gospels, is what you hear from Jesus and what you see from Jesus is going to force you to take a position. Either you're going to believe or you're going to disbelieve. You're either going to accept the truth that Jesus has come from God and has his full power, or you're going to say that Jesus has come from someplace else and that whatever he's doing is either a fake or is being done under the authority of the evil one. It's kind of like the deal with creation and evolution. A person is placing all their faith in something. Either they believe in a creator God who's big enough to make everything, or they're believing in the power of unlimited time and nothingness to create everything. We all believe. It's just a matter of in which thing we do believe. And I suppose that really is what most of Scripture boils down to. When you read through all this, when you study it, what do you come away with? Do you believe that there is a God in heaven who is capable of doing all this, or you believe that that's false? It's all about faith. It is all about what you believe and in whom or in what you place your trust.
There's some scientists that even believe that there has to be something, a higher power than just the Big Bang Theory.
There are scientists who may not necessarily believe in God, but they believe in intelligent design.
Something's, if we get here, do you mind?
Well, that's just one small step. It's just, to me, it's the Big Bang. The Big Bang could have been when God spoke it into existence. I want to know what happened just prior to.
Okay, so when we read through Matthew, Mark, and Luke, we see the raising of the dead girl and the healing of the woman who'd been bleeding. We get Matthew's little addition here of these three men who are healed by Jesus. The next thing that we see is that Jesus is going to go from wherever he is around the Sea of Galilee, but he's going to head back over to Nazareth. So we heard him teach all these big parables about the kingdom from the boat in the lake. We've read through the performing of these miracles, but now Jesus is going to go back to Nazareth, and he's going to take his disciples with him. When it comes to be the Sabbath day, Jesus is going to be where we would expect him to be. He's going to be in the synagogue teaching. Let's look at, we'll go to Mark chapter 6. Mark 6:1. Jesus left there and went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. "Where did this man get these things?" they asked. "What's this wisdom that's been given him? What are these remarkable miracles he's performing? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his hometown, among his relatives, and in his own home." He could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. Okay, so Sabbath, he's in the synagogue. When it's open mic time, Jesus gets up and begins to teach, because that's what he does. And as he teaches, the people are struck with amazement, astonishment. The word literally means they were blown away. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. They wonder about Jesus' wisdom. They wonder about his miraculous powers, because they believe that they know him. I mean, he's grown up in Nazareth. They say in Matthew and Mark combined, his dad is Joseph, his mother is Mary. He's got his brothers James and Joseph and Judas and Simon right here. His sisters are here among us. We know this boy. Where did he get this insight? Where did he get this wisdom? How did he get these amazing powers and abilities? But they're not just astonished and amazed. The NIV says that they took offense at him. Usually in other places where this word is used, it means that they fell away or they stumbled, like a stumbling block is placed in front of somebody, they tripped over it. The dictionary or the whatever tool it was that I was using on this passage says about this word, they see in Jesus what they disapprove of and what hinders them from acknowledging his authority. The people in Nazareth who have known him since he was this big, they watched him grow, they believe that they understand who he is, but when he comes back doing his ministry with the full power and authority of God, whatever it is that they see in him causes them to reject him, to stumble, to fall away, rather than to hold on to him, which is what they really ought to do. They should cling to Jesus. Instead, they push him away. The last time that he was in Nazareth, they tried to throw him over the cliff because of what he was saying. Apparently, he still has hopes that they're going to change their minds. Which, from a purely personal perspective, would make sense. Because those are all the people you knew when you were growing up. It's your third grade teacher, that's your Cub Scout leader, that's the guys you used to go put firecrackers in Coke cans with. I mean, it's everybody that you've ever known for all your life. You want them to come and accept the truth. He keeps going back there and he continues to be rejected. And he says, a prophet is not without honor except in his own town and in his own home. Like, okay, say that one more time, James. A prophet has honor except in his hometown. That's the upshot of the sentence. He's been everywhere. He has done everything. Thousands of people follow him. Potentially thousands of people believe that he is the Messiah. But at home, amongst the people who he knows best, they just can't do it.
Yes. Oh, right. I knew you when you were little. That ain't you.
Who do you think you were anyway, Squirt? I used to change your diapers. Sort of. The people have heard about his teaching. They've heard reports about the miracles that he's performed. But that isn't enough to bring about real faith in him as the Son of God. And so all that he's able to do while he's in Nazareth is to lay his hands on a few people to heal the sick. And he says, I can't do much more because there's not enough faith here. Again, it boils down to faith. I heal these blind guys because they believed. They brought the mute guy, demon-possessed guy to me because they believed that I had power. The demons believe that I have power and authority. But these jokers here in my own hometown won't believe it. And so, because there's not a lot of belief in who I am and what I can do, I'm limited. They can't, or they don't, or they won't. I'm not sure which one of it is. But they won't believe in Jesus' mission. There may be a lot of people attracted to a cool display of some kind of magical, mystical powers, but it isn't enough to make them real followers of Jesus. And that's sad. I'm sure it makes him very sad as well.
What about his mother? You've been talking to her, because even his brothers didn't believe either.
Well, at least at this point, Matthew mentions Joseph and Mary and the brothers and the sisters. Mark mentions Jesus as a carpenter and his mother Mary and the brothers and the sisters. but we don't have any proof that any of his family members believed anything about him during his life other than his mother. It's not until after the resurrection that some of the brothers, like James specifically, have some kind of faith that Jesus was the Messiah. Joseph would have known, but apparently he's dead at this point, or out of the picture. This is the only place, Matthew 13 and Mark 6, where it mentions what Jesus does and what Joseph did. He is a tekton, which is a skilled craftsman in wood, whether they were building furniture or building boats or doing framing or whatever. They deal in wood. It's only used right here, that word, in this one spot. Joseph the carpenter and Jesus the carpenter. I forget which version of anything it was that I watched. Because I don't think it was The Chosen. Because I haven't seen The Chosen.
I was just gonna say, you haven't watched that, so.
But there is
See,
some...
the war's on TV now.
I know. But there is some exchange where Jesus is working as a carpenter in his shop, and he has built a tall table, and he has built a set of tall chairs to sit at the table.
I've seen that.
And essentially, Mary comes in and says something like, "Well, that's never going to catch on." But I can't remember where I would have seen that.
I've seen that too somewhere.
Oh, wow.
Now it's gonna bug
Because
you
that's
guys
very
out.
familiar. Yeah, because they laid
Yeah.
down at tables back then.
Short tables on a cushion, as opposed to sitting up straight.
Yeah, I've totally seen that.
Yeah. It was kind of a hippie-looking Jesus, but I can't remember which thing it would have been that I would have seen it. I'll have to hunt that up this week.
That was a nice table.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, he's supposed to be a skilled craftsman in wood, so you would expect that he doesn't do lousy jobs. So, anyway, we're going to go ahead and call that good for
Can I ask a
this
question?
week. Yes, Robert.
So, a few minutes ago, you said that because the people of Nazareth did not have faith, he was not able to do mighty work. Well, so it says he could do no mighty work there.
Jesus is not able to do anything in Nazareth because of their lack of faith.
That doesn't. I mean, is that true? Is that true? Is that literal? Like, it just brought to mind the show Elf. Have you seen the movie Elf? Where nobody believes in Santa Claus and he can't get his sleigh off the ground. And then the more they believe, the higher his sleigh flies. Is that, I know that's a stretch, but...
Is Jesus' ability to do miracles just like Santa Claus and
not
Elf?
just like. Is his ability to do miracles limited by faith or lack of?
Well, that seems to be kind of the theme of all of these accounts in a row. Jairus believed that Jesus could do something either to restore his dead daughter or to prevent her death. The people outside, not so sure that she was just sleeping, but they were amazed and astonished afterward. The two blind men believe that Jesus is the Messiah before they ask to have their sight restored. Have mercy on us, Son of David. They believe that he is the promised king. According to your faith, it'll be done. They believe and they have sight. When he gets to Nazareth, he does a few things, but the people there won't believe that he is from God. They won't believe that he has divine power and authority to do these things. And so Jesus says, I can't do a lot here because there is not enough faith.
It just feels like God being omnipotent, Jesus would be able to do pretty much anything, whether you had faith or not.
Jesus does have access to unlimited power, unlimited wisdom, unlimited understanding.
And maybe it's more of I can't, as in I won't, or it doesn't meet the directive, or
Well, what's the point?
I just don't know.
What would be the point if he goes to Nazareth and performs amazing miracles? He's already seen the attitude and the spirit of the people. That's little Jesus. I used to take care of him. He's nothing special. I don't know who he thinks he is, but Well, it's kind of like we said at some point in the last month or 6 weeks. When miracles are performed, it's never to create faith that doesn't already exist. God doesn't say, oh yeah, you don't believe in me? Well, bam! Watch this. Now everybody believes. That's not the way that it works.
But
More often it's like, man, Lord, I believe. Well, let me give you a little shot. Let me give you a little boost to help you along, because I know you believe, but here's the extra amount you're going to need to pull this off. You're going to have to trust me just a little bit more.
Yeah, the woman, the unclean woman, look what she risked, because everybody around probably knew her or of her.
so it's not
Just to touch the hem of his.
So it's not the way that it works, but it feels like it could be. I'm not saying that I understand what's going on. It just doesn't feel like he couldn't do it.
I believe it's more a decision of will. It has nothing to do with ability. It has everything
Right.
to do with will at that point.
Okay.
And then like you say, what's the point? If this isn't going to change anybody's life, why?
No matter what I do, you're not going to believe. I'm not going to use this power to try to convince you otherwise.
I'm satisfied with that.
Because
Robert is now satisfied.
It's like saying I can't jump off of a building. Well, I certainly can. But I'm not
I'm
doing that.
choosing not to.
but without a parachute, you can only
Yeah,
do it once.
It is not, we'll just underscore that, because that seemed to be the piece for Robert. It is not a question of ability, it is a question of will. I can do these miracles here, whether you believe or not, but I'm not going to do them here because you don't believe, and it won't do any good.
Part of our prayer anyway. We know the stuff that we ask is in accordance with His will.
We pray in accordance with His will.
Your will be done. Or, as it
Well,
is.
and that's the way it's always going to be. If God
Right.
wills it, it's going to happen.
Right.
These people in Nazareth.
Sorry, I just got hung up on that.
No, you're fine. It was just a.
That's why we have Bible study discussion.
Per se.
So we walk away from here understanding things that we didn't maybe understand before. Or having a new perspective on things we thought we already had all summed up. All right, next time we'll get together will be next Thursday, probably. I'm still kind of waiting to hear from some of my friends in the medical community about what my schedule is going to be. So we'll see. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and kick off the recorder now, but don't forget you can always go back and re-listen to stuff. Feel free to make a comment. Let me know what you think. I know the only person who has ever made a comment so far is Penny Knoll. Thanks, Penny.